Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've certainly got one for you today. From a legendary family to the West End and Broadway stage to here in our home, Lorna Luft. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Do you know, I'm delicious and all the better for seeing you. What a life and career you've had.
Well, thank you.
I suppose the thing that defines you most is the voice, and thank God for that, because coming from the family you do, if you're unable to sing, it'd be a miserable life, wouldn't it?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think that if you, I didn't do anything unusual. I mean, if you come from a family of lawyers, somebody's going to be a lawyer. If you come from a family of doctors, someone's going to be a doctor. I don't think I did anything unusual. I went into the family business and I studied very hard. All right, I went to lots of acting and dancing and singing schools and all that because I wanted to learn my craft and I wanted to make sure that I could step on a stage as myself. And I knew that it wouldn't happen at the very beginning. I knew that I would be compared. I knew I would be let in the door, okay, because of my heritage, but then more was expected of me once I got in the door. So no matter if you don't have a family name and you don't have that, it's maybe harder to get in the door, but once you're in the door, you're sort of free and clear. And I come with a legacy that basically you have to say a lot is expected of one.
And what's interesting about you and your voices, it's completely distinctive and unique. You don't sound like your mum or your sister, certainly. How did you develop that? Was the belter style, because you have such passion and power in your voice, did that just come naturally?
I've always had a voice. I didn't know what to do with it. And I've gone through singing coaches, and I've gone through people who are charlatans and who basically don't know what they're doing, and then you have to find out. I went to a guy once who put marbles in my mouth and made me try, it was like, seriously, it was something out of My Fair Lady. And it was, I thought, okay, this isn't Henry Higgins, trust me. This guy didn't know what he was doing. But I have found now I have a brilliant man that is so special to me because of what I've just gone through. And he had to not only reteach me how to breathe, he had to reteach me how I could breathe and sing. And his name is David Sabella, and he's in New York. And in fact, I have a lesson with him tomorrow. We do it on Skype. And he does that with a lot of his students who are out of the country. And he is truly amazing. His brother is truly one of my dearest friends, Ernie Sabella. He was the voice of the original Pumbaa in The Lion King. And Ernie and I did Guys and Dolls together a long time ago. And David is he truly is a voice coach that he understands whatever you are going through and how to take your voice and make it stronger and all of that on your terms.
We're going to be talking over the next 6.5 hours about your remarkable life. I want to start at the moment as we sit here and ask you the question, how are you? Because you've been through a difficult couple of years, and in fact just the last 3 months, an incredible toil on your body.
Yeah, I've been battling breast cancer for 3 years. And I was first diagnosed 3 years ago, and it was frightening and it was shocking, and the feeling was like if you were shoved out of a helicopter into the ocean and they said to you, swim home. Okay, you don't know which way to go, you don't know what to do, you don't know, really, you're pretty well in a state of denial and shock and all that. And I went through all of that, and I also went through a period of saying, I don't want to deal with this, until my manager said, you don't have a choice. You have to deal with this. And I was lucky enough to find brilliant doctors. And I was fortunate enough to have them educate me. And once you're educated, then you have power. And the fear goes away because you understand what you are looking at, what's going on, what are your options, and what you're facing. So I did all of that. And then I went through surgery. I had a lumpectomy, and I had to go through chemotherapy for 4 months. And I lost all my hair, and I did all of that. Then I went through radiation, did all of that, and then I came out the other side. And I had celebrations, and I threw a great evening in New York for the organization, the Actors Fund, that I'm very, very close to in the United States, which is an amazing organization. And I threw a great big event at Birdland, and we raised over $150,000 in a couple of nights. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm good, I've done it. And that lasted for 18 months. And then I got re-diagnosed. And this time I was angry. I was really angry. I thought, are you kidding? I'm going to go through this again? And my doctors said to me, yeah, you are. And we're going to handle it differently. And you're looking at, we have to be not only proactive, but aggressive with you. I said, okay. And I went on oral chemotherapy, okay, which were tablets. And I was on them, and you don't lose your hair. They were not the side effects weren't quite as intense as the first time. But all through that, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm going to fight and I'm going to do this, I was just mad throughout the whole thing. I really was angry. And maybe that anger was proactive in a sense, because I wouldn't give in. And I basically thought, okay, F you, I'm going to win. Okay? And so I was on those, and finally my oncologist said, I was on the tour of Judy, the Judy Garland songbook, and she said, you got to come home. You can't do this. And I said, okay. I went back to Los Angeles, and I met with 3 surgeons. I met with a thoracic surgeon who was brilliant, Dr. McKenna, and I knew the breast surgeon, Gerald Steiner, and he is a friend, and he had been my doctor the first time. And then I met with a plastic surgeon, Dr. Randy Sherman, and they said this is going to be intense because we're talking about taking out some ribs. I said, okay. And I said, how many? And he said, we know 2 at least, 2 or 3. Well, I went through surgery and they wound up taking 7. And then they wound up taking a bit of my chest wall. They took a little bit of my sternum. They did a complete mastectomy, but because I'd had radiation before, they could not do a regular mastectomy on me. So what they had to do is they had to rebuild me. And how the plastic surgeon, Randy Sherman, was so fantastic. He took the muscle from my back, which is your lateral muscle, and he stretched it all the way to my front. And that is how he put me back together again. And it was quite a surgery. It was very, very intense. And really, as they say, major surgery. I was in the hospital for a week. I then left. I went to my best friend's in Beverly Hills, and she said, you're going to stay with me, because I live in Palm Springs. She said, oh, you're going to stay with me, and I'm going to be with you, because my husband was conducting The Little Mermaid for Disney. And so I said, you have to go. And I understand, and I will be okay. And I had nurses, and I literally said to myself, I have a goal, and my goal is to go to London, and my goal is to go back to work, and I have a goal. And all of my doctors looked at me and said, you've got to be really careful. And I said, I know I've got to be careful, but I also have to sing again, and I also have to be on a stage. And they said, then let's work towards that. And I went to physical therapy every single day. I started working with David again, and 14 weeks later, here I am.
Help me with this. For people who don't know, this was only last summer. I mean, you did Judy in May, and 13 weeks later, you're sat here talking to me. Should you even be talking? Are you in pain as we sit here? Because to have that amount of surgery and ribs removed and all the stuff you've been through, let alone the chemo on top, you must be exhausted for a start.
No, I'm okay. I am all right. I take care of myself. But I didn't do anything that was stupid. I had a goal, and all of my doctors knew what I was headed towards. And they said that's really important, because some people would crawl up under the covers and they wouldn't get out of bed. They wouldn't do physical therapy. They wouldn't do their homework. And I had a goal, and I said, I have to do this. And it wasn't because, I could have moved these dates. I could have, we have all heard about people moving concert dates and all of that. I said, I don't want to do that. This will not force me, but it's sort of like, I felt like a racehorse. And I thought, okay, I could come up lame or I could cross the finish line. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And all of my doctors kept up with me. And when I would say, I've been able to do this today, they'd say, you're a miracle. You're nuts, but you're a miracle. And I'd say, okay, all right. And they'd say, keep going.
Where does this inner tenacity come from? Where do you find the energy to fight like you do? Because for most people right now, they would be at home resting. You're here in London doing this run of shows back to back, and they're sellout and they're being hugely successful. And your voice, from what I hear, is as strong as it ever was. It is a miracle you're here. Yes. But where does that come from? Is that some spiritual being, or is it mum? Is it your family, your husband?
No, I don't think. I think a lot of it has to do with fear. Because I think that I've always been afraid that if I stopped, that's when I would give up. And so I thought, I have said to myself a lot, you just got to keep going. Just keep going. Because you've been given a second chance. So take that, enjoy it, celebrate it. And I have a few friends of mine who are going through the same thing, and they keep calling me and saying, how are you doing? I'm doing this. And we stick together and we keep saying, we're here. We're here. So keep going. And so that's really, and if you want to call it fear, if you want to call it tenacity, if you want to call it, when people say you're a tough cookie, this, that, and the other, I don't feel like that. I feel blessed and grateful. And I think to myself, that's really important to say, okay, if somebody's tapped you on the shoulder and said, keep going, keep going. And I also think that if you crawl into bed, you put the covers over your head, or you don't do the things, all that, it's one. Okay? And I have to say this. I did say this to my doctor, my surgeon, one of them. I won't tell you who. I said, when I was in the operating room, I said, promise me you'll do me a favor. He said, you're in the operating room? You're going to ask me for a favor now? And I said, yeah. He said, okay. I said, promise me. When you take these out of me, you will say, F you, she won. Okay? A couple of days later, I saw him in the hospital, and I said, did you say it? He said, sort of. I said, F you, I'm one. I'm the doctor. I said, okay. But that's how I felt. You're not going to get me.
You talk about second chances. I guess this is your third chance in a way. Just last week, I spoke to another wonderful singer, Anastasia, who's had a double mastectomy, and I asked her the same question. What is the biggest thing you face when you're diagnosed with this cancer? Mm-hmm. Is it the fact that you might lose your hair, which is so relevant to your appearance? Is it the voice you worry about because that's relevant to your career? Or is it some question of life and, of course, your own mortality that you have to question and wonder about?
I never called it a journey. And I don't like that term because my journey is to Harvey Nicks, to shoes and handbags, okay? That's my journey, okay? My journey is something you choose, and I didn't choose this. So I call it the ride. And it is a ride. It's got the same, loop-de-loops and pitfalls and death-defying falls that you would get on a ride. And then you go through it and it comes to an end. And you get off the ride. And then when I was I got back on the ride. And it is a ride. But you face, the first time you hear it, you face, I guess you're so stunned because when I heard the first time, I was having a pedicure. Yeah. And I had gone in, I had found the lump myself. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And I said, well, I'm not going to deal with this. And my best friend in Palm Springs said, oh, yes, you are. And I said, I can't deal with this. I got to go to New York and I got to do this. She said, you got to go. She dragged me in and I had a mammogram done. And they said, this doesn't look great. And I said, well, fine. Okay, I got to go. And they said, no. You have to have it tested. I had it tested. And the next day I was having a pedicure and they called me. And they said, you have cancer. And everybody has asked me what my first reaction was. And I said, could you stop filing? Because I was having a pedicure. I said, I have to go out into the street and faint. And you are so shocked. And and especially it's not in my family. So this came out of nowhere. And that, you don't know what to do. But slowly, when I got the first they gave me a book all about the disease and what my options were. I threw it in the trash can. I said, I'm not dealing with this. I don't want to know about this. I was so scared that was my reaction until my manager said, I said, I don't want to deal with this. He said, you have no choice. And I said, okay. And he's the one who literally said, stop, you can't keep burying your head. And I went through finding lousy doctors, and I went through all of that. And then I found the exact right team through people when I started to say, I don't know what to do, help me. And that was the first time. Then the second time, I was really angry, but I knew what I was facing. I knew I was facing a mastectomy. I knew what I was facing. And that was, my losing of my hair, that to me was the least of it. It grows back. It's not a big deal. I had a brilliant wig made. Nobody knew. Okay. In fact, somebody came up to me and said, oh my God, you're on chemotherapy and you didn't lose your hair. I said, that's good. I said, would you like it in your hand right now? Because I could pull it right off my head. And they went, oh my God. When women say, I don't want to lose my hair, honey, that's the least of what, you don't want to lose your life. And I have to say, chemotherapy gets a bad rap because everybody thinks chemotherapy is like this, big, scary. If you realize what it does, how it reacts, what it's going to save your life. It saved my life twice. And I have to say, because there are so many different types of chemotherapy, they can make different combinations for you. It's not a one size fits all. And so when you get educated, not only about your body, your disease, your everything, then you have knowledge, then you have power, and then you're not so frightened. And my original cancer doctor, who is a brilliant man by the name of Dr. David Agus, and he's such a force in the world of cancer. And he sat me down and said, okay, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to do, this is what you're going to do, and this is how we're going to treat this, and guess what? You're gonna be okay. And that's the most important thing. When you go to a doctor and they say, oh, we're not sure, get a second opinion. The most important thing is get a second opinion until you feel safe. Until you feel safe, find your own doctor, find what feels comfortable for you, and find your safety. Because in the world of cancer, the worst thing is to feel you're unsafe to begin with. If you don't trust your doctor, if you don't trust what he's saying, if you don't get another opinion.
And then you talk about the anger. Has that subsided now and you're in a different place? Where are you at as we sit here?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm cancer free. I mean, that was the greatest moment out of all of this, is when Dr. McKenna, when I woke up and Dr. McKenna said, you're cancer free. And I thought, okay, I was in a lot of pain. And I had that morphine button, that clicky, and I used it. And I was really taken care of at the hospital. I mean, Cedars-Sinai was fantastic with me. They were great. I can't say enough about my surgeons, my brilliant oncologist. This woman has been not only my oncologist, but my friend, and her name is Dr. Philomena McAndrew. She's extraordinary. She's the one who guided me through everything, and she was the one who guided me through my chemo. She guided me through my second surgery. She guided me with knowledge, with kindness, with love. And she held my hand. She said, we're going to go through this together. She's an extraordinary woman.
And then very finally, when you wake up in the morning now, has this given you a greater vigor to live your life to the full even more? Or do you wake up in fear that one day the phone could ring whilst you're having your feet done and they say it's come back?
I can't think about that. Here's what it's done for me. What it has done for me is it has made me live in the moment. I don't think about tomorrow. I don't think about next week. I think about how fabulous is this. I'm in London, I'm working, I'm sitting here with you, I'm doing an interview, and I'm okay. And that's how I live my life, in the moment, because that's the only way I can do that. And I think that is what it has taught me. And my children have said to me, do you think does that make you sad that sometimes you don't think of the future? I said, I thought about the future in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, my 50s. Now I'm 63. I'm good. I'm really good with living right now in the moment.
I think it was Oprah Winfrey, wasn't it, who said you don't evolve as a human being until you're present, and it's such a great skill to be in the moment, isn't it?
It is, but you can't tell that to somebody who's in their teens and their 20s. They just sort of look at you. And, I'm a grandmother now, and I have a magnificent 15-month-old gorgeous granddaughter. And so I have a lot of gratefuls in my life.
You're an inspiration to many, and I know this will have helped a lot of women who will be tuning into this, so thank you for your story.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about you and your life as a child. What was it like? We have a picture of you and Mum and your sister and you all singing together. It sounded idyllic, was it?
Yeah. There were times that it was fantastic. There were times that were hard. I wrote a book. I made a movie. I won 5 Emmy Awards. And that's why I wrote my book, so that people would understand that it was the whole deal. It wasn't just one part of a story. It was a long story, and it was a really extraordinary childhood. And I was incredibly blessed because I was brought up in Beverly Hills for the first 8 years of my life, and then we moved here to London. So I was brought up with extraordinary highs and devastating lows. But I promise you the one thing it wasn't was boring. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was. And so it was, we all have things in our families. We all have drama, okay? Mine was lived out in the newspapers. So that's how it was. And I don't have anything to compare it to. So I can't say, well, it was like this or it was like this. I didn't know I was different until I was really around 12 years old. And then I thought, okay, when I started listening to kids in school who talked about me, talked about my mom, I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then I met a lot of kids who were exactly like me because their parents were in the business. And so that's, I have a lot of friends who are in the business and who have very, very famous parents. And we all say, did you have anything to compare it to? No, I didn't have anything to compare it to. Did you? So it's like that was our normal.
Do you still pinch yourself when you consider your mother's voice and how loved it is in 2015 and will be in 2055? It's one of those voices that's going to live on. The popularity never seems to diminish. Is that still surprising to you, or did you always kind of feel that that was something incredibly rare and special?
I'm so grateful to have had her as my mother. But you've got to remember, she was everyone's icon. She was everyone's legend, and she was my mom. So I didn't think of her as anything else but the lady in the kitchen in the bathrobe, okay? And then there were times when I would watch her make up to go out, and I'd think, she's turning into Judy Garland, okay? But at home, she was his mama to us, all right? The voice was a voice that we will never hear the likes of. It was unique and it was groundbreaking because she was such a tiny person. She was only 4'11", and she had this extraordinary gift. And that is a gift that I don't know where that comes from. But I always thought that her talent was so much bigger than she was. And it gave her an extraordinary life. It also gave her extraordinary lows. But I've always thought that the story was always so overpowering because of the talent. Because when you are that talented and that gifted, it brings a lot of great stuff and it brings not great stuff. And it brings real drama and real excitement. And when you don't have a base, okay, when you are supporting everybody, your mother, your sisters, your whole family, and you're the breadwinner, and you're a teenager, and you're in this business, or you're a child in this business, something's not right. Unless you have grounding as parents that will keep you on a path of some kind of normal. My mother never had that. My grandmother was Rose in Gypsy. I mean, she really was. She dragged her around. She was always pushing her to movies. She was paid by the studio, get her there, make sure. She was a kid. When you think about it, and I really, I try to explain to people, there was no, you're talking about the 30s, there was no help. There was no help, there was no education, there were no facilities. And so it was a train sort of on the road that ended very sadly. Yeah, it was.
I've met a lot of people in this business, but not as many as you, and you have met some extraordinary stars. I wonder whether you've come to work out how you remain with your feet on the ground when you're as famous as your mother was, or as many of the stars, the Elvises, the people who didn't make it, even the Freddie Mercurys more recently. Is there a recipe to having that much talent, that great a gift, that much success, and not losing the plot?
Yeah, there is. If you have people around you that you will listen and that you respect and who will say no. But when you are a child and you have that kind of fame, that's when it becomes, especially when your parents are on the payroll, that's when it becomes difficult. When you are an adult, nobody twists your arm and said, please go into show business. They don't. That is your decision. And once you are in this, and once you decide, that's your decision. And there are many, many people who have handled it really well because they're smart and they are incredibly, almost brutal in their fight for their privacy. And those are the people I respect. That I don't know about their personal life and I don't know about this. I know about their work because they have kept their personal life private. You can do it. It takes a lot, but you can do it. What I find the new odd, and because of where I come from and how I was brought up, the whole strange thing of reality shows. I don't get it, all right? I do get it financially. I really get it, okay? But I would rather have a root canal without anesthesia than have a camera in my house 24/7. I don't get it. But that's me, all right? I would never, ever, ever want that. I would find that to be horrendous. And I don't understand bad behavior making you, quote, famous. I find those are the people that I think that's odd, all right? I understand why they do it. I understand it is a drug and it's really addicting. But I would never, ever, ever want that. I love the fact that I can strip off makeup, go through M&S, Tesco's, Sainsbury, and today Primark, and honey, nobody knows. Okay, that's great. That I love. But to have a circus, that I don't want to, I was, it was circus-like growing up. I don't want that. But I know that My feeling is, though, if you shake hands with the devil and you court that, you can't bitch about it when it all goes wrong. And when you bitch about it and it all goes wrong, and all of a sudden I read, oh, I want my privacy. Too late. Sorry, you shook hands already. You made the choice. Nobody knocked on your door and said, we must put a camera. You courted that. And that's the business of show now. And so you can control everything. You can control your life. You can control your privacy. When I was in the hospital the first time, and I read about Angelina Jolie, and I read what she had done, and what her battle was, and all about her family and her mom, I thought to myself, nobody knew about this. She did this with respect to her family, her husband, her children, and she let the news out when she wanted to. And I thought to myself, I gave her a standing ovation. Her story was so vital to all of us, okay, in being tested, in knowing about the BRCA1 gene and knowing all this. But she did it when she wanted to. And I thought to myself, bravo. She's also one of the nicest people I've ever met. Those are the people I have a huge respect for. David Letterman. I would love him to be on TV, but I understand it, I get it, and I miss him. I didn't know anything about him. He kept his private life private. I love that about him. I love people who kept all of their personal things to themselves and in their family.
Howard Stern once asked him, why don't you do interviews? He said, I'm on TV 5 hours a week. I don't need to do interviews. There's nothing else to say. David Letterman. He makes a very good point. Enough is enough, but that doesn't fit in with the culture where everybody needs to tweet every last thought.
I don't understand tweeting. I don't get why people need to know what you're doing. I'm sitting at Starbucks. I don't care. Okay? I don't care where you are. Okay? Unless you're sitting there making a film and saying, I am promoting this film, record, album, show, whatever, then I get it. But sitting, I'm having coffee, I don't care. I'm not going to read that. I don't get it, okay? But that's because I don't live in that genre and that generation. My children, they get it. Do they do it? They don't. They used to do it until it started being overpowering, overwhelming, and it can get really, really awful and ugly. And then they said, okay, this is you the dark side. I said, trust me. You don't have to meet them at the door, but they will find their way in. So you got to be really careful. And when it started happening, I think my children said, yeah, this is uncool. And they stopped doing, they said, we get it, Mom. Oh, okay, about what you're talking about. I said, well, you've got to learn. All right. And I've got a 15-month-old granddaughter. And I just think to myself, what's her future?
Do you worry about the world?
I do. I do worry about that because, I mean, she's 15 months old and she's playing with mommy's iPhone. I go, what are you doing? You know, but then I think to myself, you can't stop the future, but you also can't let the future run your life. I can't begin to tell you how many times, and now I didn't know what to do about it, but now I know what to do about it. When I have been working and I see somebody take that phone out. Okay, I know everybody talks about Patti LuPone going nuts. I get it, okay? Because first of all, you see the light. Even if you have it on vibrate and whatever, you see the light, okay? If you cannot spend a couple of hours in a theater and or a movie and or something, don't go. Yeah. If you can't turn that thing off for a certain amount of time, okay, then, stay home and don't. Because you have no idea. It's so selfish to do that to whoever you're going to see. And I love that they think because it's on silent. Can you imagine and somebody's checking their messages?
I have the 2 phone rule now at dinner. Look at your phone twice, I'm standing up and leaving, and you can pay the bill.
There you go.
If I'm that boring, you don't want to concentrate, then I'll leave. It's fine.
I don't mind. Here's what I don't mind. I don't mind that if you are looking for something at dinner and you're in a conversation and you say to the person, would you mind if I look that up? Because I don't know and let's find out. And we're in a conversation and you ask. Then I say, oh, okay. But if you're not, and I see, you go to certain countries, and I've been, and there was actual signs with that cell phone with a thing across it. I take them off the table for souvenirs, and I don't even say anything. I just hold it up. Because it's just, the thing that makes me really, really, really sad is the fact that we are losing our communication skills as in the sense of talking to one another. Okay? We don't talk to one another. And email is fantastic, but it's also a great thing to hide behind. And I know so many people who will not get on the phone and they email because it's easy to hide. It's also easy to misunderstand someone. And it causes I pick up the phone constantly and I communicate. Now, my children, because they've grown up in the world of technology and all of that, I remember standing in my kitchen with my son, who's 31 years old. Oh. How did that happen?
Is that tough, waking up one day with a 30-year-old child?
Oh, I told him he has to lie. I said, then he said to me, Mom, what's worse, saying I'm 30 years old or 500 months? I said, you have a point. 31's better. And he had a terrible grade on his writing skills. And he said, I don't need to learn that. And I said, yes, you do. He said, why? And I said, Jesse, one day you're going to fall in love with someone and you're going to want to write a love letter. He said, no, I'm not. I'm going to email. My husband turned around and said, he's right, losing conversation. But, this is a different generation. It's a different generation. And I think that the internet is fantastic, and I also think it's dangerous, and I also find it really scary, but I also find it vital. And I find it to be a need for communication. I think it's fantastic when, especially people are in dire straits in countries and they're trying to get a message out. Then I think it is brilliant. But again, it's a double-edged sword. Okay. I understand. I'm not from that generation. I understand it. I respect it, but it frightens me.
We've been talking for nearly an hour and I haven't asked my first question yet, so I suppose we should get on with it. I want to talk to you about being here in London because it seems to me there's an incredibly special connection between you and London. It seems to be the go-to place for you on earth. I mean, you're here now after all this surgery. You could be anywhere in the world. Is that true that London really is one of the most loved places to you?
I grew up over here, so it's like coming home. I love London. I love England. And again, I know that London is not England.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay, it's like saying, "Oh, I love America. What do you like? New York? What?" Okay, but I've traveled. I've been to places in England I bet you haven't been to, and I've traveled all up and down Great Britain, and I understand this country. I respect it. I love it. They have been extraordinarily kind to me. And when I am offered the opportunity to come and work here, why not?
I suppose you've defined yourself mostly as a musical theatre star, although you've done many things. There aren't many who have done publishing and TV and film and theatre and stage in your own shows. It's a unique career you've had. Is musical theatre your natural home? Is that something you feel absolutely is the place for you and you fit best?
I feel comfortable when I'm getting paid. Okay?
You do know you're not getting paid today, don't you?
Really?
You didn't get the memo. I sent it by email.
Oh, you tweeted.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't get it. No. I have to say that with a joke and being honest, because when you are doing a job, all right, and some people always say, "Oh, I'm doing this just for the art." Well, that's a millionaire, okay, who says that. All right. But I consider myself a working actor, all right? And actors, we sometimes live paycheck to paycheck because we don't have the luxury of knowing when our next gig is going to be. So I'm always very, very respectful and grateful to be working because I know there are a lot of great talented people and they can't get a job right now. So I understand that. So if I am doing a television show, if I'm doing theater, if I am doing clubs, if I'm doing concerts, if I'm doing a stage show, that's where I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable in what I am doing and I think about accepting the job. Okay, I think about, can I give this 110%? And there have been times where I've been offered theater pieces and I think, no, I just don't think I can do that. And I have said to my agent and or my manager, I don't feel that I can give this 110%. All right, and you have to be smart in choosing what you want to do. And some people have the mentality of do everything. I don't. I maybe I felt like that in my 20s, but I don't feel that way now. I think you have to be careful. I think you have to be smart. And you have to not look at it from a viewpoint of it's a challenge, because you may not meet the challenge. If you think to yourself, all right, this is challenging, and I can do this. Is it scary? Yes. Then I think that you should do what you are offered. If you really realize this is not the right thing for you, and it's not the right piece, it's interesting because I feel that if you do that, that's what you're going to be remembered. And I remember I had an audition, and I went to see the show that I was auditioning for. I had no business in this show. And I called up my agent at intermission. I said, cancel this audition. He said, are you nuts? I said, no. He said, so-and-so is coming. I said, no, I have no business doing this because I don't want these people to see me in a show I don't belong in. That's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember that audition. They're not going, and that's what I've learned.
It seems to me people like you and people as great as you are driven by fear, and I wonder post-cancer what your biggest fear is, losing your voice or losing an audience, not having a venue to perform in. What are your fears at this point, or have they all gone away?
I don't really think about my fears anymore because I can't control my fear, okay? Fear can make you do some great things and it also can ruin you. But you have to control that. You make your own fear. And so I've realized that. And my feeling is I cannot control anything outside of me. I can control my who I am, how I treat people, how I react. I can control that. I can't control what's going to happen outside. All right? I don't have that kind of fear because I faced it. I faced the dragon. So I don't have that anymore. My situation right now is I feel I can face anything. When you look at that, when you look at really life-threatening illness or anything with your health, because without your health you don't have anything. And once you face that, and you face that dragon, and you say to yourself, okay, we're gonna duke it out, and you win, bring it on. I'm not afraid of a damn thing anymore.
In our remaining moments, I just want to talk about the year and finding out who your friends are. I know people like Barry Manilow particularly has been a wonderful friend and supporter. I guess at a time like this, you get to find out who's there for you and who isn't.
Yeah, and I didn't find out who isn't. Okay? My friends who knew about this, because I didn't, I was careful in choosing who I talked to. I talked to people who I knew would say, okay, what are we going to do? How can I help you? What are we going to do? And not, oh, gee, I'm sorry. I didn't want that around me. So I chose people who said, all right, what can I do to help you in this battle? Barry Manilow is an extraordinary friend. I've known him since 1972. And he's my brother. He is an extraordinary friend. And we laugh a lot. And we have a bond. And my admiration for his talent is so huge because there's no one like him. There's no one out there doing what he does. I love going to watch him perform because I love watching the audience. The joy that he has given to millions and millions of people is extraordinary. And he has been my friend for a very, very, very long time. And I love him.
And again, when you look at the dedication of his fans, especially this year, he seems to be happier than ever. And with getting married, not one of them have flinched. The support is greater than it's ever been. And that's wonderful to see.
I just want everyone to understand how talented he is. Okay? And to respect that, to enjoy that, and to say thank you. And that's what I want from my audiences, is just to say, thank you, we had a great time. Again, as I said, I realize that we live in a world of everybody wanting to know about what's behind the door. I think it's okay to close the door, okay? And certainly I do that, and just say, I'll let you in when I want to. And that's what I think that we should all be respectful of. And I feel with my life, certainly, I'm not going... I want to be able to invite people to my party, but not to have people expect that it's a free-for-all and they can just come in when they want to. I feel that in your life you have to have boundaries, and I do have boundaries. And I think that is real important. Otherwise, I think then if you don't have boundaries, then you have chaos.
I think it's also having class and dignity and pride, which you have abundance of.
Yeah, I think I was taught that by my mother. My mother knew when she went out of the house that it wasn't going to be normal. So that when she went out of the house, it was pretty chaotic. And she was always kind to her fans. And she taught us that. And she was kind. She was very tough when it came to business people, because that was something that she knew could be dangerous. Okay. I heard her, yell and screaming about lawyers and all of that. And I didn't understand it, but boy, now I do. I really do. But to people who come up to you and ask for an autograph, sign it. It took a lot for them to come over. It took a lot for them to say, could you sign this? I only asked for one person's autograph, and it was Richard Burton.
Really?
I did. We were doing the Golden Globes together, and he was in the makeup chair. And I truly was so, I was shaking. I admired his work. And when he turned around and said hello with that voice, he could have read the phone book to me. And I said, Mr. Burton, I said, I've had a crush on your work. And he wrote on a piece of paper, "Dearest Lorna, the crush is now mutual." And I kept that in my wallet till it disintegrated. Should have framed it, but I kept it with me. And it was people like that who I admired because of the incredible gift that they brought to this business. I was lucky enough, and that's when I feel truly lucky to be my age, to say, I met Richard Burton. I was able to have dinner with Richard Harris. I was able to be a friend of Anthony Newley. I mean that when people say, "Are you afraid of getting old?" Hell no. I've been blessed to have met and to say that Frank Sinatra was my mother's dear friend, my godfather, and all of that. I'm truly honored. I mean, to have had those people in my life and to have met those people, and I respect that, and I know that that's a gift, and I'm never going to take that for granted. And I think to myself, is there anyone now? I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people who I love and admire, and I love to listen to, but I don't know if it's different now. It really is. It's different.
You've lived such an incredible life. On the Sinatra thing, very finally, to think that in 12 days' time he would have been 100 years old is extraordinary.
Wow. I know. Yeah. And I think how his children have handled his legacy, I think it's remarkable. I think that everything that they have done, and his granddaughters, have handled the legacy, has been spot on. And I think that he was such a remarkable talent, because I think that as a male singer, nobody interpreted a song better than he did, ever. And I know that he loved Bing Crosby, but when Frank Sinatra came along, he broke the mold. He was an original. And that's what's so important, is to be an original. We have a lot of copycats out there, a lot of them. But to be an original, I think that that's what my mother was, and that's who I admire, are people who are original.
I suppose in our closing sentence, the legacy your mother's given you is a sanity that unfortunately she probably didn't have to the same level you had. She died with a certain amount of tragedy around her, whereas your legacy will not be that. I suppose that's the greatest gift she could have given you, was the eyes to see slightly more clearly than she could herself.
No, I don't think she gave me that. My mother gave me dreams. My father gave me reality. Yeah. And my father had a lot of reality. Sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't, but it was honest. And he gave me that reality. But I think the biggest reality check you can have is when you have children, because they'll give you a reality check 24/7. And you can't pull anything with them. And that has been truly my reality, because there have been times where my kids, especially my daughter, will look at me and just say, really? Really? And I think, no, huh? No, huh? And that is because they don't care what you're doing. I always say they're still going to want pancakes in the morning. And so that is the reality check. And everything else is a gift. Everything else, if you are in show business and you are working, that is a gift, and you should be grateful. And whenever I hear somebody moaning about being in show business, I want to slap them. This is a gift. Be grateful, because, honey, you can be on that whatever happened to list in a heartbeat. So realize how grateful you are, and realize that this is every day comes once in a lifetime.
I guess so. Not everybody's blessed with your incredible talent. You brought such joy to so many people, and I want to thank you for the time. I've loved talking to you, and I could talk to you for another 3 hours. Truly lovely seeing you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.